thank you again for joining us tonight. This is actually our first virtual program for AHS for the 2022 year. So we're really excited to kick it off with a bang and with a really excellent topic. So tonight we have Bruce Nelson talking about his exhibit called Hallelujah Hats. And so he is going to get into that in just a few minutes. Before we get started, I'm just going to go over a couple of things going on at Arizona Historical Society and introduce you to anybody who may not know us yet. So hopefully, first of all, my name is Shannon Fleischman. I'm the head museum curator at Arizona Historical Society, and I oversee all 4 of our museum institutions across the state. So we have one in Yuma, Flagstaff, Tempe, and Tucson, and currently our Yuma, Tempe, and Tucson sites are open, and we're super excited about that, to have guests back in the building after a long hiatus. So come and visit us, and you can connect with us. Well, our mission is connecting people through the power of Arizona's history. And so we like to do that in multiple ways, through exhibits, through public programming like this one, and really telling the stories that matter to local Arizonans. And we feel like this is the perfect example of that story to connect to our mission. So if you would like to plan your visit, you can pre-purchase tickets to all of our locations, and you can find that at azhs.org. And we have 2 exhibits that we're really excited about that are opening this year. This one is opening in a week. It's about the Migrant Quilt project, and we are thrilled to get this collection. It is a story about migrants coming to the US via the southern border, and it's told through large quilts and individual patches for families and individuals. So it's going to be a really, really interesting exhibit that tells, again, local stories, and it has a fascinating, almost fashion material culture connection where you're making your story through a quilt on a patchwork. And then the other exhibit is the one that's actually going to be here locally in Tempe, titled On Air, Broadcasting the News in Arizona. And we're looking at the history of media and broadcast news in the state. So both of those are the new exhibits for 2022. We hope that you will come and see them if you're in the area. And then finally, we want to talk about the Journal of Arizona History. We have a fantastic breadth of scholars that are coming up. Our most recent issue is about sports culture in Arizona and the history of sports and athletics. It is one of the more interesting reads that I've done, even for pleasure. Even though I'm a history nerd, I think that everybody will find something that they like in that issue. And those are available digitally on Project Muse for free if you are a member of Arizona Historical Society. So if you have any other questions, you can visit us at azhs.org for the latest news and events. But without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started.
One for showing up. I appreciate it. I see some people in there in the audience that I know. So some of this stuff you probably heard before. So just kind of bear with me. It'll be fine. So let me just start saying who I am in case you don't know. My name is Bruce Nelson. I grew up in the Washington Escobedo community, which was once a segregated community. And I grew up there pitching watermelons, picking cotton, picking onions, swimming in the local canals, all those sort of fun things. So this exhibit, Hallelujah Hats, it celebrates the churches through the fashion. And so all of my exhibits that I create, I always try to celebrate that community. Those folks need to be honored, they need to be remembered. I want to tell their stories so we know who they are and what was going on, which will be always kind of fun. So a little quick background about that community. African Americans arrived in Mesa around 1905, 1906. The first crew came in. They were not allowed to live any place in the main part of the city. The first area that sort of welcomed them was called Mitchell Edition, or the Tuskegee place. Racism, Jim Crow, prejudice was very prevalent in throughout the country around that time. So finally, they let folks move in there. And so in about the 1920s, the school was built. It then took on the name Washington Park. Escobedo didn't come much later, that name comes later. And so we had 5 churches in there. And I always wondered, so why do we have 5 churches? So I remember asking a pastor, why do we have 5 churches? It's like a 1 square mile radius community? Why do we need 5 churches? And he said, well, that way God put it out there. There's no reason you don't need to go to church. You can find some church that you feel comfortable in. So that's kind of the reasons why they kind of do that. So I thought that was okay. That works for me. And I used to go to the church as well. My mom was a big church person. She used to go all the time. And so that was just really great. I'm going to pop in this bit of a PDF for you here so we can share that. Where are we? Hang on one second. Let me get rid of this. While I share this, give me a moment. Okay. Let's see. Just give me a bear with a moment here so we can share this. We should be able to see it. There we go. Hopefully everybody is seeing that. If you're seeing that, please type in the chat that you're seeing that so I know that you're looking at that. Okay. That's great. So this is the title. It's curated. I love this little picture kind of together. This kind of hats kind of going on. So like I said, they used to baptize people in the canals. That was a big part of the community. Now these photos are from like 1940s, and this was the Voice of the Pentecost Church. That's where this was going on. And my mom was one of the founding members of that church. So we went to that church as well as some of the other churches. And here's another photograph, and that's at the corner of Center Street and 6th Street, those that live in Mesa. Right there, the churches are really close together. And these photos, I love these photos. You see them dressed in the traditional baptism attire that they were wearing at the time. It seemed to really, really work. And like I said, I went to that church, but I also went to some other churches as well. And so one of the churches I went to was the AME church. And me and my buddies went there because we saw some girls going over there. They were singing in the choir. So we thought, let's sing in the choir. So we sort of made our way around all the churches all the time, kind of thing. So this is the little map of that community there, Washington Park. You see it's like one little square mile radius. It's not very big, not very big at all, but that's where African Americans settled. They could homestead there. And one of our most famous residents is Dr. Lucius Austin, the first African American medical doctor allowed to practice there. But before he was there was Dr. James Livingston. He was a veterinarian. He owned horses, he raised horses. And I remember asking the old folks, I said, you know what? I remember seeing an ad in the paper where he said he was going out of town. He was going to LA for like a week or so. And I thought, why would a veterinarian announce that? It didn't make any sense. And they quickly corrected me and said, well, you know, he used to take care of people too, because there was no Black doctor in Mesa. So if you wanted a doctor, you need to go to Phoenix. So he was like telling them, look, if you don't feel good, if things not working for you, you need to come see me because I'm going to be gone for about a week to 10 days. Well, that's kind of why that kind of works out. Now, we know about the church ladies. Everybody knows about the church ladies and their hats. And so this is a great example of what that kind of looks like. And my mom was one of them. And I remember as a kid, my sister and I, we would be in the living room. My mother's friends would gather and they would look around and start piecing things together, what they're going to wear and ensembles, how they're going to make it out. And it was just a joyous time for us to watch. Now, they were dealing with Jim Crow. They were dealing with racism. You know, most of those women at that time were working like, you know, in the cotton fields or doing domestic work. That's pretty much all they had. And so Sunday was a time to rejoice, rebuild. And so that's when they had an opportunity to really dress up and just be fun and just have something wonderful to look forward to. So that was a big deal. I remember watching my mom piece everything together. And I always thought about, well, how were they able to figure out what they wanted to wear? So we always had Life or, you know, magazines, National Geographic. They were always around the house. So mom would either get them from when she was working domestic work or at the secondhand store. Salvation Army was big in those days. So they would have these magazines so they could see what the latest fashions were. The National Geographic gave you the African content. That's what so they sort of pieced their things together with those colors in mind, differing from their counterparts, kind of thing. And then every now and then somebody would have Ebony or Look magazine. So you can see African American women, you know, being very fashionable. So as I talked to the elders, I said, how did you get your fashion sense? Because that was very common. That's where they kind of, and they talked about things, they looked at things, they said, well, this works best with this, that kind of thing. So they shared ideas. And here's a nice ensemble. My mom's favorite color was pink. She loved pink. So my exhibit, all of the hats, the gloves, the purses, the shoes, the jewelry is from my mom's collection. And my mom was like 92 when I started taking care of her. And she decided she wanted to go to church. And that's how I kind of stumbled on this exhibit. And so I'd have to pull out her outfits and say, well, what do you want to wear, Mom? And of course, she'd have to have her hats, purses, everything had to match. And I would bring it out to her and I thought, okay, I know how to do this. And she'd go, oh, baby, that doesn't work with that. And I'm like, but it matches. And she goes, no, we would go back and forth and she'd get just the right collection of what she wanted to wear, which always worked for her. And here's a wonderful, here you saw this in the beginning, the purple outfit. And you see, you always got the glove, the hat, the shoes, purses, everything is always an ensemble. And that's really great. So when we started the exhibit over at the Mesa Historical Museum, we were putting it together. I wasn't really sure how to match everything, so I called one of my nieces, one of the first grandchildren, and she has the same fashion sense that my mom had. And so I said, you know what, I really need to figure out, put this out. So before I even took everything over to the museum, we kind of talked about it. So and I remember, earlier I would bring out stuff to my mom and I would lay it on the floor and go, oh, Mom, this is your stuff. She'd go, yeah, I have a lot of stuff. Yeah, Mom, you have a lot of stuff. And so I would kind of piece it together and she'd go, no, that's not how it works. And so my niece kind of corrected me. She said, well, she would have her fall, autumn, winter, spring, summer look. And I'm thinking, well, let's just match it, So no, that's not the way it works. So Mom corrected me very easily and said, that's not how you put it together, And jewelry was a big part of that as well. Always a big part of it. Finding that right piece of jewelry to match everything. I love this little hat here. Just got this one little butterfly pennant in the front. And that's it. Didn't need anything else. She thought this would work. And she started having hats, I would say, from the 1950s right up to the 1980s. And I remember asking my mom's aunts, I said, how did Mom get into this? And her younger sister said, I started her in collecting stuff. And it was kind of cool. I go, okay, so she collected stuff. And I didn't realize how much stuff she had until we were starting to go to church and I was helping dress her. That's where I got the idea to put the exhibit together. And I was like, oh, Mom, you have like over 75 hats. You have like 100 pairs of shoes. You've got like 100 purses. You've got, 2 bags of gloves. You've got all of this. You have a lot of stuff, shoes everywhere. And she goes, yeah, I'm collecting stuff. And then, of course, pink, her favorite color, this hat here. I think this one was like the late 80s, this hat here. This one before, this is like 50s, I believe. And she had some really designer hats, which we discovered. And I think we have listening in on this presentation, the designer for the Hallelujah Hats book, Heather Kirk, is in there. So we discovered that there were a lot of designer hats, which I didn't know before. And so that was kind of cool to see. And here's one I really, really like here. This all white and this little Bible here, the ceramic Bible. And I remember she would carry this, even though you couldn't open it up, she would carry it in her purse just as part of her collection so people could kind of see it here. And this hat is like put together. I was always wondering, I'm not sure if my mom made this hat or she bought it somewhere. And a lot of the hats they would buy from what they call white elephant sales in those days, secondhand stores that would get them. Sometimes they would buy new, but a lot of times they were secondhand stores. They would figure out how to get them, and they were pretty costly in those days. But remember, most of the women wearing that stuff were working either in the cotton fields or domestic work, so they didn't have a whole lot of money. So very particular about what they bought and why they bought it. Here's another pink hat I thought was kind of cool. This little veil coming down. My mom always put everything together. She'd always match it just the way she thought it should work. The high heels, the gloves, and everything. And here's one. And this would always make me laugh. Just got that one pin. I was like, okay, what was happening? You just one pin. Well, the rest of the collection was more elaborate than that. So all she needed was just one pin sort of match that all together. And so that's why that kind of came together. And here, just always love this. You've got the purse, the gloves, and the little clasp. And you can see the little clasp there looks like a little hand. And my mom had a bunch of these. And so I wanted to get some more. So I started going to antique stores And most of the time when I would ask, they didn't know what it was. Most of the women, they had not heard of it, didn't know what it was. And if we find one, we would look at it and they didn't know what it was because they had never seen it before. And that was that generation. So the generation I'm talking about, born in like 1910, that generation of women, always very stylish, always putting things together. But this is a great little collection here that I love. And here, this was actually at the exhibit. This was on display, and like I said, my mom's favorite color was pink. And you can see this little pink outfit here, hat, purses, then in blue. Blue was my grandmother's favorite color. So we just sort of pieced that together like that. Really, she enjoyed seeing those kinds of things. Here's another blue with more jewelry. And this hat here looks like little grapes. I think this is an earlier hat. This is like late 1940s. I think that hat is around there time. And there were designer hats, and I really don't know who the designers were or what they meant to them, but they had like with the Village, Jeffrey Dara, Stacy Tyler, David Benjamin, Miranda, and she even had a collection of the 9 to 5 shoes. Remember that film 9 to 5? There was a whole collection of 9 to 5 shoes. My mom had about 15 of those. I thought that was kind of fun that she was having that. And here we go. She didn't do a lot of animal patterns, but every once in a while, she would pull this out. And this was on display at the exhibit. You can see we took the top off of it so everybody could see it, kind of thing. This was lined out, so we see all the purple, the yellow, the off-white. These hats, there's the 50s, 80s, and 60s, these hats, I believe. And you see all the gloves, always matching the gloves with the shoes or the gloves with the purse kind of thing, which is really wonderful. Here's another ensemble set. You see the green, all the lovely beads, just the shoes, everything matching. You start to see some of the jewelry. A lot of it was costume jewelry, Weiner, some of Kramer, she had a lot of those things. And I remember she gave a lot away and I thought it was all gone. And I went out in our room and where we stored stuff and found 2 more boxes of jewelry and stuff. And here's some more wonderful hats, all the white that we see. We see the jewelry, again, the green and the yellow, many colors, pastel colors. My mom seemed to like pastel colors when she was putting all of her stuff together, which worked very well for her. And then, of course, you got to have those coats with the little fur around it, okay? And these were really wonderful. She had 3 of them. She had one, you guys probably remember the fox head, the whole thing. She had one of those, and of course, that always terrified me. But I don't know what happened to it. Somewhere it got misplaced. But these were, I remember when I had to go and get them repaired. And the one that's on our left here, that's a mink. And I had to have that replaced because it was just so old. And when I took it and I asked them, well, what time period is this? And so the first said, well, you're looking at like 1957. These coats were around that time. And then the one on the right with the red, I think that was fox. That wasn't mink, that was fox kind of thing. And so I remember looking at it a little closer and I asked the fur about it. She goes, well, that was called pink champagne because there's a real slightly hint of pink on that one. It's hard to see here in this picture. When you see it up close, you don't really notice it until you really look at it. And you can see a little shade because it was wool. It was really wool. And so these I keep stored. I have to keep them stored, not too hot, not too cold. I don't keep them packaged up. They told me don't put them in plastic. Just kind of hang in the closet out of the sun. It was very popular. You see these, red. And my aunts had some of these as well. So the coats were just wonderful, magnificent coats. And here we have the black, a lot of black. Mom had a lot of black and white. And you see the one on the far left with the little star pendant on there. Again, that was just all she needed. Didn't need any more. So that works. Black and white, it was just kind of really happening for her there. This was just a simple brown hat. I thought, wow, didn't do anything to it. Looked like a big rose on there. I remember Mama wearing this when she would wear it with brown and yellow, or beige and yellow, the way she combined it together. So that was kind of. And here we have black and white. We had black, now we got black and white. And these are marvelous. You see the beads. You see again the shoes with the bows. And so when we had them on display at the Mesa Historical Museum, we had them covered, of course, because people wanted to borrow hats or take hats. And when we had the opening, I remember some of my mom's friends showed up, and they all had on hats, and it was just a really wonderful time to see them wearing their hats and remembering those times when they were wearing their hats. And here we have some more blue, pastel blue, dark blue, and again you see just a one pennant there, little pink pennant in there. It's kind of these hats. That one on the far left there, that's the late 40s, early 50s. The next one is like the 60s and 80s. The felt on the far right, I think that was the 50s, early 50s. They were telling me kind of thing. Oh, there's my book. Okay, so we had the book that we put together as a historical museum, so people were buying the book, and I'm going to post that in the chat if you would like to get your book. It's got some great pictures, a great story in it. I think you'll really, really enjoy that. So now we sort of see up close the little clips in the jewelry. See the little hand clasp on there, the little blue frog and stuff, and then the yellow. So the jewelry was a big part of it. You had to find the right colors, the right shade. Had to make sure everything matched up just the way you wanted. Here's another green and blue, another pennant. And there's that hat really reminds me of little grapes, doesn't it? When you look at that kind of thing. And that was one of the hats that one of my mom's friends convinced me that I need to let her borrow. We're still negotiating. We'll have to see what happens. And here again, really simple. See, just that little simple pennant right there. And again, that little clasp with the hand. So you got the beige with the brown gloves, the brown purse, everything fitting just in there the way she wanted to fit. She really made things work. It took a lot of times, and my sister and I would gather as they would share pieces. It was really fun to watch them say, "No, girl, you need to put this with this," or "No, let's try this, and you can borrow this and bring this back." And it was a really fun time. I didn't really think much about it at the time, but now as I look back, it's really great. And here, this collection of owls. Looking, I was like, what was that about? I remember asking my aunt, and she said that when they were in Gila Bend, there were owls around the house all the time. So remember, we were doing the book for this, we kind of asked ourselves, what was that about? And my aunt called her and she said, maybe that's why Mom collected owls, because she said when they first came to Gila Bend, they would see them all the time and kind of thing. So it was kind of figuring that out. And here we have a pink nice set and that jewelry box, that simple little jewelry box. I thought that was kind of nice. And so, again, the little clasp, the gray matching. Now this one doesn't have the little glove look, but it's really a nice pennant. That was one she had. Like I said, I tried to find some more. It was a difficult time trying to find those. And here the black with the gold, the jewelry, you see it, the pennants, the earrings, and again, it was costume jewelry, Kramer, Weiss, all of those famous brands. My mom was able to collect those pieces and make them work for her. And then we came across this when we were shooting the pieces to create the book, about this little small jewelry box. I said, what is going on with that? Excuse me, it's like, why is that? And so when we opened it up, we have this little ring in there, the little pearls. We thought, okay, that must have been special. And so then, I remember I called my aunt and she said, well, she said, I might have given her that. She goes, I don't remember when I called my aunt. She was like in her late 80s when she said, I might have given her that stuff. And so that, my mom really valued that. And I'm thinking that's probably why she had that in its own little special little case. And again, here, the little jewelry box. She was really big on collecting those. You can see as you open it up, you see all the rings and earrings and the little pennants that you put in. And that was just as much a part of it as everything else. And so really, really nice. Here's another jewelry box that was kind of fun. My mom had all the colors, blue, green, red, yellow, orange, pink, purple, fuchsia, silver, rhinestones. So when we had it on display, we tried to put all of this stuff in place as well. We thought it would really make a difference, that kind of thing. Here's another really nice jewelry box. The copper was big. Remember, my mom had a bunch of different copper pieces. This is just a small segment. She had mounds and mounds of jewelry. She gave a lot of it away, and we still had a lot left. And she could just go on. She could probably dress for, I would say, 6, 7 months and not wear the same thing. She had just so much jewelry and so many hats, so many purses and gloves and shoes. She could just go on with for a long time. And these I would have thought, these great pennants, they're just really delicate, you know, really nice the way she found that. Like I say, she found them at the White Elephant sales, or Salvation Army was a big one. They would have them. I remember I would go with my mom over into the downtown. They'd have a White Elephant sale right there, Rendezvous Park, and they would have the jewelry here. And like I said, if we turned it over, you could see it was probably marked Kramer or Wise, you know, it was all the costume jewelry. And these, we saw a collection of pineapples, about 10 of those. And these pennants she would put on her jacket, or she put on her blazer, or she would put on, sometimes she put them on her shoes. I remember she would, even though it wasn't a shoe bucklet, she would put it on there anyway. That's kind of what she would just kind of make her own fashion statement. And I think that was her thing. And then we came across these little frogs, butterflies, little parrots. And my mom used to have a parrot, canary actually. She had a little canary, and it would fly around in the house. And she trained that little canary. It would come and fly right on her shoulder, and it would just sit there. And I thought, I've never seen anybody train a canary before, but she definitely could do that. So that's how I think she collected these little animal pieces like here. And also one of her neighbors that she would hang out with, she liked exotic birds. And so I think that was why she sort of collected these. And this one just sort of reminds you of the sea. Doesn't that coral look with the seahorse, the blue and the coral color? Really, really just elegant, kind of really delicate kind of thing. And those earrings, I think those are from the 50s, those screw-on types, the 50s, late 40s, early 50s. When I was talking to some of the folks, that's when those came about. Didn't have the clip-ons yet. And this red hat, really just like feathers red hat going on. And we found this out, then we discovered this. And we just sort of laughed like, what was going on? My mom saved the tag. She had it tucked in underneath. And I was like, well, what possessed her to save that tag? What was going on? And I remember asking my aunt, and my aunt Betty, and she said, well, sometimes it was just important to keep the tag. She didn't really go into any detail. She just said sometimes it was just important. And I'm like, okay, I guess that will have to do. Okay. And here is one. We see this designer hat right there. And that was kind of nice. And she had a lot of these. These were designer hats from the 50s, which was really, really nice. Like I said, some of the names of those designers were, when I started looking them up, they were really quite well known at the time. Really big. Apostrophe, Miranda, Miss Berner, Joe Bill Miller, you know, Taylor Salon. It was really very popular, all of these names. And so she did that on purpose, I think. I think she collected them on purpose and just sort of said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. So everything that we looked at belongs in my mom's collection. But you could go to any small town across America during that time, and you would see the church ladies having their collection. And so we put on the exhibit. We did it just before COVID hit, unfortunately. We did it in February, and we had the Red Hat Society was going to come. We had some of the Black sororities. And then March happened, and then the exhibits, the museums closed. And so it sat in the Mesa Museum right until about July, because we weren't sure what was going to happen. We weren't sure it was going to be open. So it just sat there. Unfortunately, we didn't get a lot of people to see it like we wanted to. But we will be bringing it back at another time. So tonight we'll kind of revisit that, take a look at it, see people enjoy it. Hats, like I said, my mom had tons of hats, kind of thing, you know. was very important to those ladies to have an opportunity to dress up on Sunday. It was a big deal, you know, all of the ladies in different, and they all had on their particular style. Took a lot of pride in putting it all together, figuring out how you're gonna wear it, you know, because then the week would be over, and even like a Saturday or Wednesday, if they were doing church prayer or Bible study, they would even dress up for that. They wouldn't always wait for Sunday to do it. Of course, the conventions they have, the missionaries, like I say, my mom was one of the missionaries. They would baptize people in the canal and they would dress them white. So it was just a really memorable time for me and my sister. And that tradition is kind of gone. You don't see them matching it. You still see hats, because hats are important, but you don't see them matching with the purses and the gloves and the shoes and the jewelry and the pennants. They've kind of gone away from that. They're just hats. Now they're big and bigger hats. But I like that time when they were all putting it together. I think it was very important. And the men were wearing hats too at that time, if you remember. They would dud it up with the hats. Different hats, you know, different places kind of thing. So that's kind of looking at the exhibit that I had. There's more hats, but I didn't want to get into boring you too much of them. But that's kind of what we have for you to look at tonight. I'm gonna just pass it back all the way to the front here. You can see it, real nice look. And there they are, the church ladies, okay? So I'm gonna leave that right with you. Hopefully you have some questions or some comments about it. Have our host jump back on, and I think we're even gonna allow you to pop out your mic if you wanna pop in and ask a question, or if you have anything specific, let me know. I'm gonna stop sharing.
We do have one question. And well, so Marianne and Jim asked a question, and if you would like to unmute yourself and ask the question, that would be great. If you feel more comfortable with me asking your question, you can just let me know in the chat.
Oh, I'm happy to ask it. Bruce,
Wonderful.
Great presentation and a terrific pictures. I love the colors. The matching of the jewelry and the shoes, you're right. It doesn't happen as much today, if at all. In fact, if people even show up with hats, it's amazing, because I don't know about your church, but we even have people showing up in shorts at ours. So hats don't go with shorts, but anyway, I do wear hats. I'm sometimes called the hat lady at my church. But I would like to know, I heard you say that they did buy their hats sometimes at the flea markets or the Goodwill or the Salvation Army. But I have a feeling that one where you had the sales tag and the label inside, that looked like that came out of a department store on sale. Good for your mom. But I'm kind of curious, do any of the ladies still have a place where they go to find hats? I don't find them around in most stores these days. And I'm looking for one of those good looking broadband hats.
Yeah, you know what's happening is you can go to antique stores and you can find the older hats. The newer hats, there are some folks that make them online, which is really great. People can make them and they're selling them that way. But the whole concept behind that, and remember, like I said, white elephant sales, it was yard sales. They called them white elephant sales when I was a kid. And the Salvation Army was big. Goodwill wasn't big yet. That hadn't broken out yet. And yeah, she probably got that one at a department store somewhere, maybe Penny's. Don't really know, but yeah, most of the time, and they were in good shape, even though they were secondhand hats. And they did buy a lot of new hats, and they got them on sale, like you said. But it's kind of hard. But if you want some vintage ones, you can go to antique stores, and you can find some vintage hats. And they can get, they're older, but they can get a little pricey. You know.
Well, I noticed that one that had the sales tag in it. That house, that price would have been a lot of money, and back in the 50s and the 60s, that was $46. That'd be like me paying 150 today. So yeah, hats aren't cheap, but I'm glad to have the hints, and I'm gonna start looking in antique shops. Thanks.
Yeah, And
I
you might
was
go online too. You go online and there'll be someone that's making hats and kind of thing. So you can find some.
Yeah, I was gonna say Etsy is a good place too, so you can find, current designers making them, and you can also find the vintage ones on there as well. So Etsy might be a good place for you to look as well. So, okay, so Todd has asked a question. So Todd, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself, I'll let you do the honors of asking the question.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear
Yes.
you.
Bruce, this is a question from me and Mom. What happens when you get happy in church, or you feel the need to do the sanctified dance?
Mhm.
Where does this fancy hat go? Because, I never saw any hats get damaged, or they never flew through the air.
Yeah, you know what they would do? I remember they would take their shoes off. That's the first thing they do. They take those heels off and they would put them under where they were sitting. They put those heels and they would hold that hat. And so when they start to get that little glory dance on, they would never go too far. They would just go just a little bit. They want to keep everything intact. And then sometimes I remember if they really got the Holy Ghost, they would take the hat off very lightly. They put it in their chair. They do their little shout, and then they walk back over to the hat. And that was common throughout the church. I remember seeing that all the time. But yeah, they took great care of those hats. You had to be careful. Or I remember my mom, she would hand it to my sister or I, like, oh, this. So you're right. They're very particular about it. When you get the glory hit you, you got to move. You got to move. But they took care of them. They definitely took care of them. Great question.
From hat holder to hat curator, you've had a good experience with the fashion. So we still have time for a couple more questions, and I'll allow some time for you all to filter those in the chat. But I had one just about, you are so compelling with telling the stories of your mom and of the church through your mom's clothing. So can you just talk a little bit more about why you study fashion history as a way to study history, and how you got into that as a career and passion?
I'm an actor by training. And so I'm always studying people, looking at people. And so when I started caring for my mom, she was in her 90s, and getting her outfits together, I just thought it was fascinating. I thought, I never really thought about it. I remember seeing it, and all of her friends were that way. I remember, and Todd may remember Miss Myers, Sister Rose. They were my mom's friends, and my Aunt Minnie, and they would come over to the house. So I started looking at it. I thought, there's more to this than that, because how did they able to afford that? Like you were saying, most of the women, the majority were either, domestic work, or they worked in the cotton fields back and forth. Some of them, didn't have to, but most of them were there. So it's like, that's expensive to do that stuff, but it was important. It was very important for them to do it. And so as I started looked at it, I thought, well, how would they afford it? And I love the fact that I asked my aunts, they looked at the fashion magazines. The National Geographic was one that they really looked at, because in terms of how they put their colors together, very Afrocentric perspective as for a European perspective, because that's what you saw in Look and Life. If you happen to get Ebony magazine, you could see the Black women's fashion. But as I went through it and I called my aunts around and I said, we looked at those books and remember those, the African colors and the schemes. And so I thought it was just interesting to bring that, to celebrate the churches through the fashion, which I think everybody can relate to. So that was my take on it right away.
I love that so much. So we don't have any more questions, but I do want to give you a chance to kind of talk about other upcoming projects that you have, because I know you have a couple of things on the horizon. Maybe some media interested. Oh, Todd has another question, so maybe we'll let him jump in real quick before I let you go on your next adventure. So Todd, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that a thought came to me that my grandmother spent half of Saturday in the beauty parlor before she put the hat on her head, on top of her do. I just thought of that, but she was like a magical, like watching her go from her, all those different eras of like the house coat and the duster and the patio dress, and to watch her dress up like a queen on Sunday. It was like magic. So
Yeah,
very
I
interesting.
Yeah, it was. It was very popular. I'm going to put in the chat. You can see there's the link to my Amazon page where you can buy one of the hats. I know your mom's got one, Todd, because I gave her one to have because I know she would like it. But yeah, so you're right. The fashion was very important, and they really just went all out. And like I said, you could go to any city in that time, from the 50s to about the 70s, early 80s, and you could find a group of women doing that kind of thing. Anywhere from the South up to the North, you would see it. So it was really wonderful kind of thing to see. Great question though. Yeah, it's so funny. They get all dude up with their hair and then they put the hat on. But they had a way of making it work, for them.
Well, so Bruce, do you want to talk about a little bit more about some of your upcoming projects that we can get excited about too? Because I mean, I'm fascinated with this talk. I've already ordered the book on Amazon. So tell us more about what we can expect to see next.
Okay, before I do that, let me just to bring her on so we know, Heather Kirk is listening in. She designed the book for me. Her and I went back and forth. She photographed everything, and with my niece, and she had a blast doing it. And this volume 1, we're going to do volume 2. But just that experience of putting it together was fun. And Heather, if you feel like saying something, talking about that experience, I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think Bruce and I talked a lot about it. Was really emotional for me as well, because I had found when I was helping years before, I had helped my grandmother move out of her home into assisted living, and we found her church hats at that time, which of course also were antique hats. And so I had taken them at the time and photographed them myself. And so to be a part of this project was just really exciting because it brought back those memories for me as well. And I think as people see this exhibit in particular, it will bring back memories of grandmothers and kind of the days, just especially pandemic days, so different, but family and time together. And those Sunday special rituals, I think. But I enjoyed working with Bruce on putting things together. He's given me a lot of freedom to choose what to go together in the pictures. But then, like he said, Monique came over and helped as well to put I could do the jewelry and hats and shoes, but when it came to the clothing, we really needed Monique's help because she had been there and seen how they put things together. But there is a definite cultural aspect to it.
Great, thank you. Yeah, it was trying to piece it all together. And we end up, when we did the exhibit, we ran out of room in there. We had still another 10 hats that we didn't put out. And we had another 6 or 7 outfits that we didn't put out. So we had a blast putting it together. I wish it could have stayed up a little longer. Like I say, we're gonna bring it back. Hopefully, we're over at the Arizona Heritage Museum. They requested it for 2023. We'll have to kind of see what happens. Hopefully it'll be on there, and then you can take a look at it and enjoy it on that level. So thanks, Heather. Yeah, we're gonna be looking on volume 2 pretty soon, so we'll see what happens.
Great. Well, and Heather, just as you and Bruce were sharing your stories too, like this is what makes me love to be a fashion historian, because some people can look at paintings or other forms of art and get that emotional reaction, but for me it's always the clothing, because I think it's a little bit more personal, because you do have those memories of watching people that you love get dressed or admired get dressed in these clothing and be the best version of themselves on Sundays, right? So you get that personal connection. So these stories have just made my entire night. So I appreciate that really gratefully. Yeah.
I see Todd put in the chat there, his mom carried a hatchet. And you know what, my Aunt Minnie, she carried a straight razor in her hat. So yeah, something else was going on. I don't know what was going on, but I remember that. I thought, why has she got that straight razor? But something was happening in that time period that they felt they needed to do that. So you're right.
Topic of women's security at that time.
Yep, it's before the pepper spray was, widespread.
Yeah. So we talk about the next project. So the next project we're working on now, we've got 2 things coming up. I'm excited about both of them. My veterans exhibit will open up in February at the Mesa Library. We're really excited. It's going to be there for Black History Month. and we're just finalizing everything. You're going to be seeing everything on Facebook pretty soon. That's going to be going out. We're gonna have the Buffalo Soldiers come out, do a presentation again, which I think will be a great time. Hopefully we'll have the mayor there, the vice mayor, and all those people. So be sure to come out. That it will be installed February the 1st, but it will kick off February the 5th, which is the Saturday. That's when we'll do the opening ceremony. And that's on the horizon. And I just found out today, thanks to Todd, I did reach out to Jeanette, I think it is, or Jennifer. And so tomorrow, over at Jared's Coffee, Tea, and Gallery, Veta, is that her name? She's coming out tomorrow to interview me, talk about my exhibit. So that's going to happen tomorrow morning. So look for that soon. They may, whenever they release that. I know they were just at Todd's house talking to his mother. So that exhibit's coming up pretty soon. And then the other exhibit, I'm going to post it in the chat here. And Todd is doing this with me. I'm really excited about this. It's called Matriarchs of Washington Park. And so I did the veterans exhibit, and I thought, I've highlighted the men. Wonderful things I should some of the women. So he and I were talking about stuff. And so I thought, well, how about we do portraits of the women and tell some of their stories? And so Todd is going to be one of the artists painting, and I've got two other ladies that are painting. And Heather's going to be involved because we're going to do a book as well. So that should be coming up soon. But I'm really excited about it, finding some great stories about these women. They persevered through racism and misogyny in a time which is crazy. And I looked at women that were born in the 1920s and before, kind of looked at it. And you think about that, like my great aunt, she was born 1886. And so those women, that generation is gone. They never come back. They remember, and her mother told her about, those times that was happening, Reconstruction. And you went right into Spanish-American War, World War I. They saw Jim Crow era was happening. They went through the Great Depression. They went to World War II, and they saw the beginning of the Civil Rights Movement. So that generation of women, we just won't have around anymore. So we really want to celebrate them and tell some of their stories. And they have some wonderful stories. And it's a wonderful story I love about my Aunt Minnie. Aunt Minnie, she lived to be, I think it was 105. And back in 1986, in our neighborhood, it was under siege by the city. The city was trying to move everybody out. They were buying properties and everything. And the community pushed back. They were like, we're not gonna leave. We've been here, we're gonna ground it here. And I remember I saw a newspaper article, my Aunt Minnie had been interviewed with her neighbor, Miss Louise Harrington. And my Aunt Minnie said, I've been here so many years, I'm gonna die in this house, you're not pushing me out. I don't care what you say. Miss Harrington said the same thing, I don't wanna live in a concrete jungle, I'm gonna die. So that was 1986. And then about 2 years later, they awarded my great aunt with the key to the city. I just thought, okay, that's what it takes, I guess. And we still have that plaque. We have that plaque. And so that will be on display when we do that piece over there. So that's the next one that we're doing. And one of the other stories I really like is Miss Harrington used to have lots of exotic animals in her backyard. And I remember as a kid, she had alligators back there, and someone else said she had a Gila monster, and she had exotic birds, and she just how she was, kind of thing. So that exhibit's coming up. It's going to be very exciting. We're going to unveil the portraits Mother's Day weekend at the Austin House. We're going to do it there, and just found out that ASU wants it. So we're going to be installing at ASU in the summertime, which is going to be really great. So those are the two that are coming up right now. And hopefully everybody will come out and see it, enjoy it. We just look on your Facebook page, like me on Facebook, and that way you can keep up with it and you can see what's going on. So that's the next piece of things we're working on, okay?
Wonderful. So the one more question that just came in from the chat. Betsy has asked, have you created any other videos that maybe exist on your YouTube or Facebook pages that tell about Washington Park history in general, or more Washington Park history?
As a matter of fact, I have, and there's a documentary I made called Northtown, and it's on Amazon. So if you have Amazon Prime, you can, I think you watch it for free, really free. If you're not, it's rented like $2 or $3. It's not real expensive. So if you have Amazon, and you know what, let me go to that page and let me see if I can find it for you, and I will pop it in the chat. And it's a documentary. It's about 65 minutes, and I've revamped it, I've re-edited it, but the version you see now is not bad. And it got into about 5 different festivals, and I'm talking to PBS now. We're going to try to get it on PBS local, which would be kind of cool. But let me go to Amazon Prime, and I'm going to pull it up, and I'm going to put it in the chat, and you can watch it this evening when we finish here. Like I say, if you have Prime, I think it's either cheap, it's either really cheap or it's free if you have Amazon Prime. So here we go. There it is in the chat. You can go tonight. You can go ahead and stream it. It's like 65 minutes, and Todd's mom was in it. I got her to sing in it. It was really kind of cool. And you'll want to rate stories, and I really wanted to hear stories from people. So you'll hear a lot of stories, and that's what I want to do. So that's out there right now, and there will be a documentary about the veterans. We're in post-production on that right now.
And then Todd just had a comment about your documentary about how much he liked it, and he would really like us to show it again at the Heritage Center. Todd, I agree. I'm on it. We'll work on getting it shown in the auditorium at some point in the Heritage Center, hopefully soon. So I think that's all the questions that we have, and we're running up until 7. So I just want to thank you all for coming. I know that, first virtual program of 2022, and it couldn't have gone with a more engaging person. I think that I can listen to you, Bruce, for like 6 more hours talking about all of these church hats and the stories about your family, and just I'm on the edge of my seat literally we got on at 5 p.m. So for the last 2 hours, I just appreciate all of you participating too and asking questions. We are going to work on getting this Zoom on our YouTube page for a few months. Will hopefully be early next week, and we will edit out my terrible video showing skills, so you don't have to worry about seeing that. But make sure that you follow Bruce on his social media channels, because he does have fantastic work, and it's exciting to see what is coming up. But thank you all. Have a wonderful weekend, and we hope to see you all soon.
Great, thank you all. Thanks for having me. Everybody stay safe out there, and we'll see you in the funny papers.
Good night, everybody.